I'm Claude Potts. I'm 90 years old. I was born in 1925. I was one of the few at that time that was born in a hospital. My parents had me in the Hudson City Hospital, and when I came home, Tivoli has been my home ever since.
Were you born on a farm?
I was born on the same farm that was still operating yet today. The farm is a century-old farm. My father, my grandfather, great-grandfather, they had it, and they were in business according to papers that we found in this 18th century, and we're still going ever since. Primarily, I went into the apple business. My son-in-law is running the farm now, and he's going more into fruits and more in the vegetable line, and that he doesn't care that much for apples. Yeah.
What kinds of apples did you like best?
Macintosh is still one of my favorite apples. I found that apples are a northeast product primarily. Delicious, and some of the other varieties are more adapted to Washington, Oregon area, but they can't grow Macintosh out there. But I've always found with a little extra care, I was able to make a buck with Macintosh because it was a local apple, and I had some good outlets throughout the years. People would come back for our apples when they reject some of the other bigger growers right here in the valley, even some of our neighbors right here fairly close by. So I feel that I was doing something right.
Were they an eating apple, or did they go for cider, or how did you use them?
We were primarily all for eating, and Macintosh made good sauce, made good pies and everything. And then the culls I would take to local cider mills, and they would go for juice and that. Grancelli's had a mill here on Curly Corner Road. They went out, and then we went up to Germantown, and they had a good mill outlet up there, and they didn't get enough apples to survive on. And then from there on, I was taking my cider apples down south of Highland, down across the river, and I had a good outlet there. And then economics, they in DEC come in and closed them, that they didn't have sewage facilities enough there to carry the waste products from the mill away, and that sort of ended out. And as far as I know right now, there aren't any commercial cider mills here in the valley, and that right now those that do have cider, big commercial lines, have to take them out to western New York to be pressed. But there is a good line, and there was a lot of smaller presses coming in for these small size road stands and that.
There's also we all set?
Yeah.
Likewise. We were talking about your farming. You can sit back. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Relax. And you were talking about apples and the market for apples, and you said they're eating apples and juice apples, but you haven't mentioned hard cider.
We never really went in for hard cider. That was, you had to go through with an extra license and all like that. And I was satisfied with the cooking and selling them wholesale. I take a lot of them to Hunts Point, and a lot of the jobbers down there, they were waiting for our shipment of apples to come in there. Sometimes I'd take a load down, and they didn't go in the market at all. They'd back up their truck to our truck and we'd take them right along there. One thing was, in fact, we passed a law years back, but it didn't work out, that you could only pick McIntosh after a certain time. People were picking them too green. They tend to fall bad, and they were trying to beat that. And they didn't have the flavor that a regular tree-ripened apple has. So I built up, I would get maybe a quarter, 50 cents a box or bag from more than the average grower would get because of that.
So there was no hard cider, but I heard that Tivoli was always a center where you could get, if not hard cider, you could get moonshine liquor.
I wouldn't say any more in Tivoli than any place else around. You know?
So where was the moonshine made?
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth, I really don't know. I really wasn't in for most every farm, I will say, that's when Grancelli's up there had a cider mill. They'd take a barrel of cider, a 55-gallon whiskey barrel, and fill it with sweet cider. Let it set, and during the winter, when it froze, and that they put a rod down through the center of the barrel, and pour it out, and that was usually the alcohol part that was separated from it, and it was back those days we had a lot of people living on the farm, workers. And I can remember my father, usually every Sunday night, they invite him in the house, and they'd have a pitcher of hard cider out there for him. And that's about the only thing I really know much about the hard cider end of it. But a lot of the people did have a barrel of cider. And at one time, in the bootleg deals, when we was growers to bring the whiskey down and was going into the bales of hay, people would have a lot more of that there. My father, people would bring it down. My father and grandfather and that would put 2 bottles of cider in a bale of hay, and then when they got a load of hay on, or whatever whiskey they had to put in it, they would take it down to the Tivoli dock, and the dayliner would come from Saugerties over, because they would load up with bales of paper in Saugerties, and then fill out with apples and other fruits and vegetables and whatnot from Tivoli, and take it to New York City. And down there, the bales of hay usually went to Patsy Murray's address. They had a bar there on Broadway, and that's where it would end up. And that. It was quite a business those days. And most of the law enforcement officers back then, they knew what was going on. It didn't hurt. Everybody was in favor of it at the time. It was back when people were getting tired of all the laws they had there and everything, and ready to go back to regular type situation.
In your lifetime, you've seen a change in farming here in Red Hook and Tivoli. What's been the greatest changes?
Well, the main change was back then, the main power on a farm was horses. and you had your horse-drawn plows, discs, and all that type of thing. Hay was mowed on the farm in the field with a regular horse-drawn side mower, raked in with a regular rake in the field, and then they come in with a hay wagon. And these, in the meantime, a crew would go out and these windrows of hay, pile it on piles, and as the wagon came through, they would pitch it on the wagon. And when they got a big wagon load, and there was good-sized loads on there, they take it to the barn. And then most of the bigger farms had our hay fork type that they would poke down in the loads of hay. And when they got it down in there, they pulled levers. And when they did that, spikes come out on the end of the fork there. And then there was usually a team of horses on the other end of the barn and a track up in the barn. And a connection on the end of the track to come down to your load of hay. And as the horses pulled on the rope and pulled out, that would shorten that and then pull the whole thing on up into the barn. And then when it got to the top there, it would trip the level and slide, go on into the barn. And then one of the guys in the barn there would yell out to the guy on the wagon, and that he'd pull a rope, and that would release those forks, and that whole thing would slip off the fork. And that was the primitive way. And then after that, they came out with a stationary balers that would be right at the barn, and they bring that hay or take it out of the mow and throw it into the baler, and that would make the bales of hay that way. And those balers were powered, excuse me, primarily from our treadmill with the horses onto it. And that was where the power, you didn't have gasoline motors or anything like that to run it at the time. And from there on.
We're going to change the battery.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. When did you get the first tractor on the farm?
That was a Ford. And that was a 1940 Ford. One of the first ones that came out with rubber tires and everything on it. The old Fordsons we never had, and that they had the iron wheels and that. But the real tractor we had was the 9N Fords. Then they came out the following year with an 8N Ford, and each one had a few extra features onto them.
So you worked a team of horses. You could.
Oh, I plowed, walked behind a plow and plowed with horses and whatnot all along the line, cultivated with horses. We used to have a horse primarily we'd cultivate with. That horse knew more than I did, in a way. You'd start her up the road, and she'd walk right along there. Not when you didn't have to really steer her. Get to the end, she knew she was to the end. Turn around, go back, and it worked out quite well. But don't try to go past noontime. That horse knew when it was time to go in for lunch, so-called lunch, and we'd take her in and tie her to the barn, give her a scoop of grain and a pail of water and everything. But after we had our lunch, she was right ready to go again. Yeah, some of those horses really were. They knew exactly what they were supposed to do, like training a dog. They were trained for it.
How many horses did you have on the farm to work with?
We usually had 3 work horses. And then years back, before the cars, usually had couple horses, but it was road horses more. They were faster than our the draft horses, which were work horses.
What kinds of horses? What were the draft horses? What do you call? What kind of horse? It was a Clydesdale, Percheron, what?
Tell you the truth, I really don't know. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they were just they were good. The work horses were a more solid horse and had bigger feet and or everything. They were work horses, and the others was more limber and faster.
So during World War II, the farm, talk about World War II and the farm and your life on the farm during the war.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was in school from 1935 until, maybe 1930, I'd say. And I graduated in a 3-year high school program. It was a special program built during the war for people could graduate and get credit for 3 years rather than a 4-year diploma. And I had that. During my senior year, the coming season, I was due to go in service. But then in January or December, there was a special program out. They called it the Navy V-12 program. Another guy and myself, we went to New York and took the tests, and I had passed to go in the following June, after I got out of school, into the Navy program down there. But by the time graduation come, the war was coming sort of to an end. And I didn't have to follow through onto it. But I would have gone into the Navy V-12 program, or that year I was going to graduate, my folks were good friends of Eleanor Roosevelt. And this one time, we were up to Valley Hall's place. That's her uncle, Mrs. Roosevelt's uncle. And she was up there. And in fact, she was trying to teach me to play pool there that day. And she never made it. I never made a pool player. I never had time. But anyway, while we were sitting there, Mrs. Calladay said, I hear something coming up the driveway. And that was Franklin coming in. And pulls up in front of the house, and it was 2 cars in front and 1 car behind. That was all in the whole program. And they got the wheelchair out, Mr. Roosevelt, and they got him into the wheelchair, helped him up on the porch with it, and he was very independent and wheeled himself on into where I was. And we sat there a while, as you and I are sitting here right now, and he says, I hear you're going to be getting out of school in June. And I plan on it. And he said, along as we were talking, would you like to come to Washington? And that. And he says, I'll get you a job in the ag department down there. I said, it sounds very interesting. And I'll let you know in a short period of time. So within a week, I got back to him and told him I decided I'm going to stay up here on the Tivoli farm. I'll do the agricultural day up here. And that was the end of that. And a couple times I had either Bard or Red Hook kids down to the East Park place of Mrs. Roosevelt's, and she happened to be there a couple times. And she remembered me right along, and she would see me with a group, and she'd call me over go inside and want to say hi, and so it was. I found them very interesting and very nice people, you know. So, yeah.
So you were one of the few people around who remembers that,
Oh,
and that was a different time. And now you've spent your life in Tivoli, mostly in Red Hook, and the changes have been dramatic since then. What do you notice now about life in Red Hook?
uh,
The changes.
it's gotten more congested. A lot of the established businesses, bigger businesses, family, good-sized businesses, have closed, and it's gotten more knick-knack type things. That most of the regular natives around here don't really use the products that they're trying to sell. Red Hook is picking up a lot of knick-knack type things with Bard College students coming over here now a lot. And I think Bard gives them a living that way. And the center of Red Hook has changed so much when the hotel that was in the center of Red Hook closed, which after the fire, I have thoughts on that. I'm not going to say anything on that, but I would like to see them rebuilt and had a nice hotel where the gas station is there on the corner. And of course, on the other end, the Schaefer store closed, the post office closed, and, well, the First National Bank closed. Of course, then we got the new bank there, which is very good. And between the traffic and not enough parking in general, I think our people just aren't stopping in Red Hook and do the shopping. Or we don't really have a grocery store in the village here anymore. Or as one time I remember when, of course, as I said, the Schaefer, you had the Grand Union there where it used to be the Chevy dealership there with Sisms and that. They done a good business. I bought cars from them and that there. And then next door down here, you had the Ford dealership there, which is now the tractor place. And next to that, you had the garage there, which moved south of the Red Hook there. And most of the older established places are closed. And of course, then later on, IGA came up here, and while they were in business, the Kresge, not Kresge, I forget exactly the name, moved out of where the drugstore is now, and because the drugstore is there now, but Red Hook isn't the same as I remember it years back.
But Tivoli, tell us about Tivoli. Tivoli hasn't changed that much.
Not really. We went through a lot in Tivoli there. Tivoli was a railroad town. Always. That was the biggest employment. And they had a lot of people working for the railroad from Tivoli. It was right on the tracks and everything. And Tivoli had usually probably at least 8 to 10 trains a day for each direction stopping there. And people from all over, it was a direct route from the Liserville area, where people happened to be out there, and a lot of people living far away from the railroad those days. But they done very well. And we had an ice house there, and in the winter, that was employment for a lot of people to fill the ice houses. And ice business was a big business then. And you didn't have refrigerators or anything. And you couldn't make ice below Poughkeepsie. There was too much salt in the water down there. So that's what really made it big up this way. And then, of course, our Tivoli had a big freight yard. Most of the merchants, bigger merchants, they would have shipments come in on freight cars and down in the, our freight yard down there. And in fact, we had even a freight agency out of the station there. And in fact, the place where I was working, Lasser's Garage, they had a franchise that we would, people that didn't want to pick up their own freight, we would deliver it from down there. So, and then our, at that time, Tivoli had 2 post offices. We had the Tivoli post office was down by the river. And then uptown, that was the Madeline post office in Tivoli. And our, after I got out of high school, I was quite active with everything at the time. And I know I was on the planning board and stuff. And amongst the things that we were discussing, why do we have 2 small post offices here in Tivoli? We had the RD route, which wasn't quite as big as it is today, but we got the government to consolidate the 2 post offices, and we had a bigger post office built under 1 zip code, 12583, and it worked out quite well that way. And a lot of things, this was right after the war, everything was prosperous then. And we got the town of Red Hook to change down by Red Bridge. That was down the end of Montgomery Street. It used to be, coming on that bridge, it was almost a right turn to get on the bridge. And it was one accident after another there. So that was changed. And different other things were changed. And even going back below that, 9G has changed so much. And that 9G originated somewhere up around Hudson. And it came down past Tivoli. It's a dirt gravel road. And it ended down by the upper end of Bard College there. And in 1932, this, through some pull from somebody, they made a concrete road, and they extended it down to Berrytown Red Hook Road. That's down 199 there. Of course, back then it went past the church program down there. It didn't end at the traffic light there, go through. That was, they extended 199 a few years later after that, and that changed that. And then while they were putting 9G Road in, it was a little political pull there along the line too. They got permission, and they extended the road going into Tivoli down to the river. That was a concrete road, and that, and curbing and everything else there, which was aces up at the time. And that all helped the freight yard there and the communicating to the railroad station. And then about 8 or 10 years later, they extended 9G from Berrytown Cornice down to Route 9 there. So.
You started out in school in a one-room schoolhouse.
No. At that time, Tivoli School was the #1 school in the town of Red Hook. The school, they built that school in 1915. Now, the Red Hook School was older at the time, and that was down on South Broadway here. And they had a fire in the early 30s somewhere, that time. And then it was quite a controversy as to what they was going to do about it. And along the line, it came that they decided to move up here on Linden Avenue, and they originally built the Linden Avenue High School and grade school there. And that was in the around 1937, 1940, in that area. And at the time, everything was, it was after the war, everything was booming with the developments coming in and that. Well, now we needed high school. The Lincoln Avenue School was getting too crowded. And Tivoli was crowded already, so they couldn't. And then they made and built the high school here. And by the time the high school was built, well, with the people moving in the area and extending the district, Red Hook district so fast that they built the Linden Avenue School.
You've got changes.
I mean,
Just a minute.
no.
They built the Linden Avenue School was going to be dedicated by President Roosevelt.
That I really don't.
Yeah.
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 Could be.
They opened in
Yeah.
September,
Yeah.
1939, and but the war started, and he had to stay in Washington,
Yeah.
not be in Tivoli. Right.
Then they built Linden Mill Road
Mill
School.
Road.
And when they then the Angel School District moved out of Tivoli over into Red Hook, and that congested Red Hook that much more. And then they put the second addition on Linden Avenue School here, and come into the late 50s, 60s, and that our Tivoli people wanted to, they all get into a new school. And Tivoli consolidated with Red Hook. And the last graduating class from Tivoli was in 1963. My wife was a teacher at the time there. And but then with Tivoli going over into, a lot of them went over into Mill Road School. Mill Road School couldn't handle all the students there. So Red Hook, some more paperwork, I don't know exactly how, but took over the Tivoli School and had K through 3 in Tivoli School, busing them back and forth. And then while they were building the addition on the Mill Road School there, there's 2 sections to the Mill Road School. And then the next thing, they put an addition on the high school, the second section. And then from there on, now it's getting the other way. We got more space and we have students.
The change goes like this, doesn't it? What I'm interested in is when, over your lifetime, you've seen the changes in farming from apple. We still have apple orchards around, and dairies. We don't have any more dairy anymore. And now we have
right.
So, and your farm has changed.
Right.
What do you see if you were to come back in say 50 years? What would you see here still in Red Hook and Tivoli in farming?
I wonder. I really do. Cornell right now is setting up a program, especially across the river there, and that they're trying to establish more small, little family farms. I don't know. I'm not all in favor of it. I think it's going to be too many of them, and whether they're going to be able to move their product at a profit big enough to live on to. It's a question. It's going to have to be a lot more handwork, because on a small farm they wouldn't be able to use the bigger machinery that we're using today. So it remains to be seen. I've seen mistakes made good many times, and I think maybe we're opening up a gateway for it today. And are these small farms going to be able to bring in the profit to pay all the taxes that we're getting? And certain, you have certain expenses that have to be met. And it's hitting the town very bad. Right now, according to what different ones have told me, 50% of property tax is off the tax roll. And every time that happens, somebody else has to make up the deal. The school now, I mean, the school taxes are high because there's less people paying in onto it. In our the Generette farms there in Berrytown, I understand is practically all off the tax roll. The Mooney program there is all off the tax roll. And then a couple other little places along there. And then with people's got the road stand there in Berrytown. The main part of that, the front part where the road stand is taxable. But the mansion and all that, that's, I understand, is off the tax roll. Bard College is off the tax roll. Bard I don't complain about. Bard is bringing in a lot of money and supporting a lot of the town here. More people work in Bard than anywhere in northern Dutchess County. Yeah. And then you go on up, then you come to Tivoli Bays there. That's 1,500 acres right there off the tax roll. And then now, I don't know how it got done, but within the last 10 years, part of what was Claremont before, from the Davis estate up to the entrance to the park there, is Town of Red Hook now. Town of Red Hook has to maintain the road there down to it. So, and then how many other places here that I don't know about that went off the tax roll? And every time somebody else goes off, somebody else has to pay it. And Albany is not helping any onto it. Right now, school budgets are to be made up. And how can the Board of Education come up with an estimate onto it when they don't know how much state aid you're going to get? And the state mandates to do so much, in which they used to pay for it. Now they're backing out, and the school district has got to pay for it. And it's the same with the town. The town's got to do a lot more things than they used to do, and not get paid for it.
All things considered, would you, let's see, what is it the best thing about living in this area? In your opinion, what is in your lifetime, what has been the most rewarding thing to be here in Red Hook?
The growth of Bard College, I think. A lot of people complain about Bard, but I know the business at Bard College is typically right up there. I mean, three-quarters of the business are Bard College students. And most of the college students, they're used to spending money, and they don't mind spending it. And it's a nice young group, and I think it's doing good for the whole town of Red Hook. And it puts us on the map. And of course, things in the Red Hook area, we had, years back, we used to have the pie plant down here south of the village. That's closed. And that brought in a lot of money for people that work in there. And one thing after another has been closing. So.
But it's.
And I've seen a lot of changes on everything.
But if you had it to do over again, would you live in Red Hook?
Yes.
Why?
Primarily because I was born here, plus the fact I could see a future here. I liked it. It was a good climate. I liked the place. I liked the people. Why move out? And when I didn't go to Washington, I made that decision right then and there, or go into the service. I bet if I went to Washington, I'd been a cook like the rest of them down there.
And on that very happy note, we thank you, Claude.
Well, that's wonderful.